welcome to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts. I'm your host, Marty Elliott. Along with me today from our Zamboni Company is Doug Peters, our Regional Sales Manager of the USA. Our guest today is Ryan Shaffer, Recreation Director of White Township Public Works of the S&T Bank Arena in Pennsylvania. Ryan, Doug, welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Marty. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you aboard, guys. Ryan, let's talk about you a little bit. How did you find yourself in the profession for the White Township, Pennsylvania?
Kind of a long story, to be honest with you. I'm one of those that found their way into the industry and really never had an ice hockey past. I actually spent my days growing up playing football. That's American football, and went to college on a football scholarship. I probably wouldn't have been in college if it wasn't for football. I'd probably be turning wrenches on a tractor somewhere if I didn't find football. But yeah, I went to college, loved sports. So what did I do? I majored in sports management. After I graduated, I moved to where I live now, which is Indiana, Pennsylvania. Some people out there might recognize the college name IUP, or Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I started a master's degree program part-time, and there was an ice rink slash recreation facility in town, and I walked through the front doors one day and ended up speaking with the manager, and he hired me initially as kind of a grunt worker. I was cleaning toilets and low-level operations, and that quickly turned into me getting more and more responsibility. And before I knew it, I was the assistant manager of both the rink and the parks, and now I find myself as the director of the rink and the parks. And we've expanded by leaps and bounds ever since I took over. So it's definitely a busy job, but very rewarding. I love the industry. I like being around sports. I still don't skate at all. I'm terrible at it. Occasionally I'll go out and skate guard or something like that, but that's about as dangerous as I am.
I got to get back to Indiana, Pennsylvania then. You don't skate? I was down there training you, and you don't skate? You never told me that when I was down there 2 years ago. Wow.
I skate, but not even well enough to play in what we consider our Jurassic League, which is our old guys league that's slow as molasses. So I don't even skate well enough to skate in that league. So yeah.
Well, you made a comment that you chose to turn left to go to a university in the States, NCAA. You could have turned right and ended up in the CFL, just like our Canadian cohorts up here, but that league's done right now, so I'll leave it at that. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the multi-use facility and give us a verbal tour of your facility that you operate.
Okay, so Indiana, PA is actually a pretty small community. It's the whole county, there's only about 70,000 people, so it's rural western Pennsylvania. We're right on the fringe of kind of the Pittsburgh market. If you drive north of us, you don't hit another rink for about 3 hours. You got to get the whole way to Bradford, PA, or Jamestown, PA, if you're driving north till you hit another rink. And that's just so rural in western PA, especially north and northwest and north central. So we're right on the fringe of the Pittsburgh market. Luckily we have a phenomenal hockey culture in town. Being a small town, it's kind of surprising we even have a facility at all. But the culture's kind of propped us up over the years, and it's probably been able to help us weather the storms. There was some bad years here in Pittsburgh after we had the kind of the Mario Yager boom. In the 90s, that all these rinks were built, and then there was some rough years from, I'd say, 2000 through about the time I was hired by the township in 2006. And then the Penguins, got some luck on the pinball machine and made some good moves, and we had some cups, and the Pittsburgh market's been in good shape ever since. But so happy the rink's here. The township stepped in and saved the rink from foreclosure in 2006, the same year I was hired. on top of the ice rink, so it's a dual sheet facility. We only operate one as ice. The other side's an indoor multi-purpose space. Soccer, lacrosse, tennis, lots of activities on that side, as well as events. We host things like gun shows and coin shows and festivals and all kinds of things, as well as just being an ice rink. And then we also maintain 400 acres of parks. We have 6 baseball fields, four soccer fields, tennis courts, pickleball courts, basketball courts, picnic pavilions. So on top of your typical ice rink operations, we maintain a fleet of mowers and tractors and utility vehicles and backhoes and all kinds of things. So I'd say the ice rink's about half my job. Ice rink, for those of us who live in this world, we know how intensive it is. So the 400 acres of park's about half, and then the rink here's the other half.
So it sounds like you're wearing many hats, Ryan.
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about the township, your county. What's their position on conservation, being conservative, going to the green initiatives within your township? Can you share with the audience what that looks like?
Yeah, so we've been extremely aggressive, especially on all fronts. I'll stay on the recreation side because that's the side I know best. But over the years, one of the first things we did when we took over the rink in 2006 was, I think by 2008 we had swapped out all of our metal halides in the building, which was a huge cost savings. Oh man, we probably shaved $3,000 off of our monthly electric bill. We've continued to do lots of things. We had to replace the ice rink floor. It used to be a sand floor. The thing was a mess. We were always patching pipes in the off seasons. We replaced our compressor system, upgraded it. We've done a number of other energy efficiency things. Just this past summer, I won a grant through our state, and we put about $900,000 into the building just this summer, in the way of sealing up the roof. We pulled all the old nasty bad insulation out of the walls. We have a steel building. It wasn't really designed like an ice rink. It was designed like a warehouse, like so many rinks out there were over the years. So we pulled all that insulation out of the walls, and we actually sprayed in 3 inches of closed cell spray foam. We replaced our dehumidification system. We upgraded our bleacher heat. All of it's helping us with from an energy efficiency standpoint. We've noticed this fall with the startup that our compressors just seem to be putting along. I haven't seen a lot of data yet, really, to show up on our electric bills, because we've only been open now about a month and a half. But it's great. You go back there and they're just kind of purring along instead of working hard. And I'm sure that's a benefit of all the energy improvements and the new dehumidification system we put in place. Here around the rink, we sit on about 100 acres of parkland. And one of those areas we're actually looking into right now, putting up a solar field. And that solar field would fully fund the entire park system, including the rink. We're trying to figure out with some engineers if that's feasible, and if we can size it the right way that we're essentially energy neutral. The negative is in Western PA, and I'm sure, are you up in Canada, Marty?
I am, Ryan.
You're just north of us, right? If I drove up 219, I'd get to you.
Yeah, you got 4 hours, and giddy up, you're on my side.
Yeah, so we kind of live in the same world as far as weather, and so obviously Western PA isn't the greatest place for solar panels to catch light, but they think they can design it in a way that it'll be we'll be energy neutral. So we're working towards that. Hopefully we can make it happen.
Well, your timing on the energy neutral and solar panels couldn't bring more timing to me asking my guest, Doug Peters. Doug, maybe you can share with what Hawaii has done with the facility and their solar panels and the efficiencies they've brought. And yes, they are, Ryan, a level ice customer. But Doug, why don't you step in and talk a little bit to Ryan about level ice and to some of the efficiencies that he's experienced?
Well, the facility over in Hawaii, Marty, I don't know if you got the task of having to go over to install the first one when Level Ice sold it, but they purchased another machine probably a year or two ago, and when they got the new machine, they got that with Level Ice as well. So their primary machine and their backup machine has got Level Ice on it. I can't speak much about the solar panels on the roof, but I'm sure that would probably be a good feature. There is a rink in the Boston area that has solar panels, and that seems to be something that seems to be growing. Obviously, if you can capture sun and turn it into electricity, it's not going to give you enough numbers to operate compressors. I don't think.
You know what? You're definitely right about that. But and Ryan, I'll share this with you. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug. The gentleman that's running the facility down in Hawaii, Doug, is it?
Doug Taylor.
Doug Taylor. I remember meeting Doug at ISI in Las Vegas at Caesars Casino. And he was telling me at the time, back in 2013, they were paying the highest kilowatts per hour out of all the states in the US. And they were paying 65 cents per kilowatt hour. He is now, since he's installed that solar system, along with Level Ice and that, he's got his facility down to less than 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So there's definitely an ROI involved in there. But anyways, I'll let you continue. I digress.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it's not surprising that they would have that. And it's funny because I own shares in the electric company that provides the electricity over in Hawaii. I wanted to own a piece of Hawaii, and that was what I could afford to buy. Ryan, one of the things that I know is very interesting, and it piqued all of our interest, and Paul has reached out to you about it, is can you elaborate a little bit on your savings that you've seen in labor costs by using the Level Ice product?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the reason I was interested in it to begin with is, at the beginning there I said how broad of a scope we have here, and obviously, we operate in a way that my staff at 7 in the morning might be setting up a baseball field, in one of our outdoor parks, and then by 11 a.m. we might be, one of us, you might come back and you're the guy that, opens up the rink to the first customer of the day. So one of my big focuses is always trying to make us more efficient as a staff. And I know when I first started hearing about Level Ice, to be honest, I was extremely skeptical. I know there was an ISI conference up in Minnesota. What was it, 4, 5, maybe 6 years back? And there was some rink managers up there that had installed a Level Ice system. And I remember I was in their building because it was the one of the locations where ISI was doing some of their work out of. They had their on ice sessions at one of the Minnesota rinks. And I remember asking the operator and the manager at the time. I pointed at it and said, "Hey, I see you got the Level Ice system. What do you think about it?" And no bones about it, I don't remember exact words. He hated it, and he just like, it's terrible. We plugged it in, we used it, we hated it, And so honestly, when I started researching it, it was pretty sour. It was kind of like, boy, up there in Minnesota they hate it. Why? What would it do for my building? And but I kept asking questions. I'm not a person that takes the first, someone's first opinion. I kept asking questions. Got in the ear of some people that, seemed like they knew what they were talking about. And eventually I think I did enough research that I said, I'm betting the bad stuff that I heard is more misinformation or not fully understanding how the system works. And I think I can say with the definitive answer that had to be the case, because some of the stuff I remember those managers saying up there was, it's just crazy. It's cutting all, it's cutting all the time, and it was this and that, and we'd have the bin full, and we got off the ice, and so we just unplugged it. We took it off, we put the wheel back on, and I understand that, because it does the same thing in our building. Like, if you build a sheet of ice, and humans are imperfect, obviously. So that ice is going to be wavy. There's going to be ups and downs. The first time you put the level ice system in play out there, it's going to go a little bit nuts because it's trying to undo all the stuff that the human did. So if if let's say there's a sheet of ice in place there, and you drive into a building with the Zamboni with level ice on it, and you drop your conditioner and start going, it is going to cut like crazy because it's trying to take all the highs off that humans have created. So, I can say, it does scare you sometimes because of it doing that, but you just have to realize if you run it enough, it's going to get it flat, and then it's going to keep it flat. So yeah, that was exciting for us. I mean, we installed the system on our old unit, so we were still running. I'll put the whole context in play here. We took over the building. We inherited a 1997 Olympia. It was a CNG machine, and we're still on a CNG machine, the new Zamboni CNG. Western PA, we're lucky to have extremely cheap CNG, so I can operate very cheaply on my machine. So when we installed it, we were coming from a 97 Olympia, and I would say that on average, if I look back at some of our work logs and stuff, I had maintenance guys that were probably putting in on average on a slow week, maybe 10 hours. On a busy week, let's say we had big tournaments coming up over the weekend, or, we're hosting, playoffs, maybe we were approaching 15 hours of maintenance, and maybe not all of it's actual clock time, but it could be like, hey, I got to stay in the building because I got to go out there and do 3 more floods because my, that 19-year-old almost cut the crease out over the weekend, So, there was a lot of times I was tying a guy up to the building that was having to fix mistakes, and that's a side effect of our situation. We have to cross train. We have to train young guys. I can't afford to have a full-time Zamboni driver. The same guy that drives Zamboni also sharpens skates. The same guy that sharpens skates also, mows the lacrosse field. So, it's we have to cross train, and a lot of times cross training creates employees that probably shouldn't be on the machinery. So in our case, it made sense. So when we put on the equipment, obviously there was the learning period. There was the let's figure out how this works. I'd say within about 3 months, 4 months, when we figured out the crux of the system and what worked and didn't work for us from an operations standpoint, we're down to like 2-3 hours a week of actual maintenance time. And of that 2 to 3 hours, I'd say an hour to an hour and a half of that 2 to 3 hours is edging. That's one of the things we learned real quick is you got to stay diligent on your edging. If you edge every day and it's quick, it's a 10-minute edge. We're moving out there. It's not like we're putzing around. If we edge every day and we make sure that left ski isn't high, if the left ski is high, you're going to have trouble in them first 2 passes, and you're going to end up bowl shaped again. So level ice wasn't going to fix that for us. But if we edge every day and we make sure it's flat at those boards, our maintenance, like I said, is only about 2 or 3 hours a week. So we went from 15 hours and tying up a full-time maintenance worker to literally, maybe that full-time maintenance worker is only putting in about an hour a week. And that's just us doing Thursday. On Thursday mornings, we still go out and we'll do like figure eights and cross cuts. Because one thing we noticed that over time, if you only drive your normal pattern with level ice, eventually you do start to get a little bit of a waviness to the ice. And I just think it's the system. It takes it that split second to half a second for that actuator to turn that blade, to move that blade a little bit. So over time, it seems like the ice wants to get a little bit wavy. So if we aren't out there once a week doing some cross cuts and removing that waviness, then we end up, with some longer term issues. But like I said, if we edge often and we just do that one day of doing some cross cuts, 2 to 3 hours a week is all we put into ice maintenance now. No floods. Go ahead.
Ryan, you are reducing the amount of time that your operators are having to spend on the ice surface grooming it.
Right.
Has that translated for you into other savings potentially related to blade changes because they're not shaving as hard as often or spending as much time taking ice off that they would have let build up manually doing it? Is that translated to maybe you're going a little bit longer between having to change the blades?
Yeah, absolutely. Blade changes are less. You think about previously those hours we'd put in cutting corners. We don't cut corners at all anymore. As long as we edge the corners are flat. It's a beautiful sheet of ice as long as you edge. So so blade changes. We might be able to get another 3 to 5 days out of a blade. There's a lot of other benefits, I think, wear and tear on the machine, water usage, heat load on the compressor system. I mean, these things, I'm not sure if it's the right term, but there's almost a trickle down effect here where, you're using less electricity on your compressors. You're not spending as much for blade sharpening. You're not paying as big of a water bill. And that's one thing Marty did great when he trained us is I remember him saying, there's a tendency to go out there and just flood the heck out of it every time. And that's something we used to do on the old machine is we were always low in places. So we were all, because the guys weren't good at running their blades. We'd always be like, just turn your water on the whole way. At least if we're flooding the heck out of the ice, then we won't take the paint off, hopefully. So you're kind of playing those games where you're putting down more water than you need to. Marty showed us real quick where we should be opening that valve up to, and how to properly run our wash water pump. And so I'm sure our heat load and our water usage is probably fallen by probably about a third when it comes to the cuts.
Well, Marty is definitely our product specialist when it comes to the level ice. And I want to throw it back over to you, Marty, to get a little bit more detail out of Ryan and go further into the level ice system.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, Ryan, I do recall sharing that information with you and your staff, and it's great to hear post-installation of level ice and the effects it's had economically, economies of scale with the operation and your capital or your operational costs moving forward. One of the things since I was down there in your facility 4 years ago, and I share this with you and our audience that's listening, Zamboni has spent a lot of extensive time with our digital coordinator, Ben, and our brand manager, Paula, and our marketing team. We have a lot of resources on our resources tab and a lot of videos available. So as you have staff coming in and maybe part-timers can't express enough to you to take advantage of those level ice videos. It's basically me in front of you on a video, no different than I was 4 years ago, that you can actually utilize those videos to train your staff. And some might forget a bit and due to complacency or whatever the case may be, but take advantage of those videos. So let's talk a little bit more about level ice. I mean, we know there's lots of other considerations, and it's really tough to pin down from a financial savings related to the specifics of the product with all your other variables, lighting, things like that, E-value, blue and some insulation. Maybe you can share with the audience, since post-level ice, your ice maintenance is decreased. You're down from 15 hours to an hour. What else have you noticed that has affected your ice conditions that maybe your user groups have come back to you and said, hey, Ryan, wow, don't know what you've done, but great sheet of ice. What else can you share with the audience about that?
So I think I attribute a lot of it to a new machine too. I think the two go hand in hand. I mean, on the old 97 Olympia, it didn't matter how much water we were putting down or how hard we were shaving. We always, you'd look back and, in a 10-minute cut, which is what we try and accomplish, um, we weren't leaving the kind of ice quality we wanted to be leaving. I know, um, one of the great things, and it's funny to me, the majority of the complaints always seem to surface out of adult leagues. It's always hilarious. Every grown man that's ever skated in a rink before is an expert on ice quality and ice maintenance. I'm sure you guys know that, but we noticed it right away in that first year that we had a nice flat sheet. We were putting down the right amount of water. We were using our wash water pump, and that was the first time, we had people from our adult league saying, "Wow, quality's a lot better here." You know what I mean? And that's a situation too where usually our adult league shifts, that's when you got that 18-year-old in the building. You got your full-time, better trained employees that are in the building, are in the building for the high school games and maybe the Saturday night public skate where you got 300 teenagers in the building. So you need to, obviously there's staffing considerations there that play into ice quality. The nice thing about level ice is it doesn't matter who gets on the machine. Your ice is always good, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, I wish I could say that in my other endeavors here at work. I mean, I'd love to say it doesn't matter who I send out to do the baseball field grooming. It's in perfect shape, and you can say that with level ice, assuming you train them properly. I mean, it's essentially foolproof. You teach them to drive, you teach them to use the system, and the only thing that I still have to hammer home over and over again is on the Zamboni itself. Everyone wants to haul ass down the straightaway and then pull off the pedal and then back into the pedal. That's my biggest beef with those young drivers is they're not consistent on their speeds. But if you can hone them in on speed, your ice is in phenomenal condition no matter who's on the machine. So that'd be
Right.
my
That's one of the things about speed is your enemy with level ice. The faster you go, the level ice system doesn't have the time to react. It's 200ths of a second from the front of the runner to the actual blade making its change up or down based on the conditions of the ice. The faster you go, the optimum speed, and share this with your team and the audience is listening in. The optimum speed with level ice or without level ice, being a hand crank, a hand wheel, is 5 miles an hour. So I know you have the 526 CNG machine. So the template that's on top of that your forward, reverse, neutral stick shift is, if you bring that stick shift back to the back wheels of the front decal of the Zamboni decal, and put your foot all the way down to the post, you are driving 5 miles an hour. And if you put the operators in that position every time, your ice will maintain the consistency that you've expressed and not having to worry about guys ripping down the middle doing 9 miles an hour without turning their flood water up, which of course creates in the infamous world of our ice arena industry a bowl. So I'll let you take that one home with you and share that with your team, Ryan. Hey, listen, let's talk about your user groups. I mean, you have user groups that are coming to your facility, probably use other facilities. And correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, I'll let you chirp in on this one as well. I know we got Mr. Hansen down on the island. He's got level ice. We got UPMC, the Mary Lemieux practice facility has level ice. We of course have PPNG, the home of the Pittsburgh Penguins, has level ice. Are your customers coming back to you and referring to your ice and the qualities of the ice compared to where else they're playing at?
Out of certain rinks, absolutely. I know there's rinks in our area that you hear the horror stories. You hear about. We were down there over the weekend, and we ended up playing a game with 4 cones that were blocking out a spot where a skate went through the ice. And yeah, so we do hear those. Since we put in level ice, we have not hit paint once. We haven't had a single pop out anywhere. And we're only carrying 1.25 inches. So, so the peace of mind alone as a boss of being able to leave the building on a Saturday night, and maybe you're not coming in until Monday morning if you're lucky. The peace of mind in leaving the building and knowing that that 18-year-old that's only got 50 hours of machine time isn't gonna remove your crease is so nice. So yeah, to answer your question, I know it is starting to proliferate here in Western PA. I have a great relationship with Dave down there at RMU, and that was part. Gosh, his name's slipping me right now, but the gentleman who runs the Pittsburgh Penguins facilities is the one that convinced me that I needed to do it.
Mr. Radke.
There you go. Yep. And it might have even been Doug that said, "Hey, I think the Penguins are using that. You should reach out and ask." And yeah, I got in his ear down there. We were down there for a meeting, and he talked about it. And I believe he ran the Super Rink up in Minnesota prior to that, so obviously he carries some credibility in the industry.
And they have it up there as well.
Do they? Yep. So
Yep.
I mean, I think he was the one that convinced me. So some of the sour stuff I heard, early on in the research, I think he shot most of it down and kind of got me I think he was the one that pushed me over the edge as far as, yeah, this is going to be right for us. So, yep.
Nice. So for our audience, Ryan, kind of the top 5 bullets, points, someone considering level ice. Maybe you can share with the audience what the top 5 points are pre-installation of level ice to where you are today that you can share with them, and your experiences. Maybe you can give those top 5 bullet points.
So I'm speaking from a management perspective, right? I know, a lot of people that listen to this might be operators. Not that I don't do a lot of operations anymore, but I'd say number one is what I just mentioned, peace of mind. I mean, my worst scenario is, we hit the ice during the middle of a horror story, like, hey, we're hosting D1 club playoffs, and we just had a major pop out and the whole tournament comes to a grinding halt, right? So that peace of mind with level ice is phenomenal. Number 2 is obviously, I would definitely say the ability, the cost savings, the ability for me to use my staff in other ways. And I think sometimes, it was a no-brainer for me that anytime I can make my staff more efficient, I jump at it, because we're just going in so many directions and we have so much on our plate. I'm sure there's managers out there that are saying, this ops guy, I'm paying him full-time hours. He's in the building. Why spend the 20 grand? But I think those managers, I don't know that they're considering the opportunity cost, right? There's a lost opportunity cost there, where that operations manager, or whatever his title is, that's ultimately responsible for ice maintenance. That manager could, that ops manager could be doing 100 other things in the building. He could be building, he could be paying attention to adult leagues, or building an in-house program, or something else that's saving energy. Maybe he's swapping out light fixtures. You know what I mean? So I think that opportunity cost is something that managers and operators need to consider more when they look at putting level ice in a building. Third, I love the aesthetic value of it. I know, and this is just me kind of being a fan of sports. I mean, in general, I love a 8 a.m. on a golf course that's just, there's that smell, and it's, you know what I mean? And the course looks amazing, and it's just cut, and, it's the same thing in an ice rink. I mean, if you step up to the Zam door after you cut and you look out across that, and it's perfectly clean and perfectly flat, I mean, there's kind of a little bit of a wow factor that entire sheet, that 17,000 square feet, in our case, we never get outside of about 1/8 of an inch of perfectly level, and it shows. I mean, it just looks phenomenal. So I think the kind of wow factor there is something that sticks in my mind. I know people, you know, come into our building for camps and clinics sometimes, you know, and some of those camp instructors that spend a lot of time on the ice in all kinds of rinks. We always get compliments on our ice quality, and more so since we put in level ice. And a lot of it's just kind of that, oh my, look at how nice this sheet looks. You know, now I go to a rink and if they have high corners, I can see it immediately. You know, so I think that helps us sell our facility. I'm not sure. 4 and 5. I might have lumped all 5 into the first 3. So I'll just
That's
leave.
okay. Yeah, you
Yep.
know what? That's okay. I suggested 5, but you know what? You've certainly covered off a lot, Ryan. And I got to tell you, I love your passion for what you do, and you no doubt instill it in your operators, your lead hands. When you can stand back after you close the Zamboni doors and look at your rink and go, "Wow, I know I'm given the best conditions, the best ice for my user groups moving forward." And that's what it's all about. And we're blessed that Level Ice is able to assist you and your operators in that process of giving the best ice to your user groups. Hey, Doug, let me bring you back in one more time, and maybe you can ask a couple more questions for Ryan before we shut her down.
Sure. Ryan, are there other, with you guys being as green conscious as you are there other things that you're looking at doing in your building to help maintain or get to that level that you guys want to be with maybe a zero carbon imprint on the world?
So yeah, I mean, we talked about potentially looking at the solar fields. We've investigated. Again, we're sitting on big plots of land. We have investigated things like geothermal systems, you know, that would help us do things like heat and cool the building, and you know, maybe temper, you know, temper boiler water, you know, lots of things like that. There's things in Western PA that are realistic and not. Geothermal really isn't that realistic for us. It works better in hot climates, I'm told, where you're using that, you know, you're using that cool ground underneath the ground a ways. Up here, you know, you know, we only have, you know, what, maybe 3-4 months above 70 degrees a year. You know, so there's obviously green is very important, but you know, there's also you know, the realities we live in. One of the realities in Western PA is we have extremely cheap natural gas. So there's a cost benefit analysis in some cases up here where you look at something and you say, boy, you know, I could go out and get that electric Zamboni, but you know, it ends up costing so much more in electric to fuel that, you know, to fuel up that Boney, where I can keep my you know, my rates lower, you know, potentially by staying on CNG and continuing to heat with CNG. So I mean, we're real realistic here as far as, you know, we try and do our, you got to consider both sides when you talk green, and one of the considerations has to be, you know, the health of the building. I mean, if there is no building, you're not serving the community, you're not an asset. You know, so, you know, we're always looking at that balance between being a good steward of the environment and still being an asset to the community. Electricity is easy for us to target. It's our, you know, our most expensive utility by far. But we're still better than most parts of the country, for sure. But yeah, beyond looking closely at solar, and doing all of our energy efficiencies we've already done, you know, we're looking at some LED light systems. That's probably the next big step. With the project we put in the building this year, the $900,000 that went towards insulation and things of that nature. The next big thing I think we're going to go after is replacing our old T5 fixtures. Those were fluorescent fixtures that we put in back in 2011-12. those fixtures we're going to try and get replaced with true LED fixtures. That way, that's probably our next big leap forward in energy efficiency. And I'd like those to be fully dimmable, like I see in some of the facilities. That way we have complete control up and down. That way we can kind of tailor our light level to the client on the ice at the time. So.
Yeah, that seems to be a trend in the rink industry, is going to LED. I know that one of the gentlemen, Jerry Hart, who used to be involved with the ISI board, former NHL hockey player, he owned a facility down in North Carolina. And when they bought their machine, I went down and visited them several years ago now. It's funny, what seems like 1 or 2 ends up being 5 or 6 years, and what's 5 or 6 seems like 10 or 20. But when I went down and visited when they got their new machine, one of the things that they had done was tested out one of the lights and put it over the referees area. And they had some people comment that it was almost too white, that it was providing the light. But I think that your idea with being able to dim the lights is a great one, because then you can set it up however they want to have it. They've got controls now that you can use less lighting than what you would have had with either old mercury vapor or metal halide, or the T8 fluorescent lights that were prevalent for a while. And it seems like everything with technology it's new and relevant until it gets in the box and gets shipped. And then once it's shipped, it's the old stuff and onto the new technologies. But we're very happy to have you as a customer, Ryan, with the 526 out of our Canadian plant, operating on natural gas. Very happy to have a guy like Marty on our staff that can go down and instruct on something he's very passionate about, which is the level ice, and help customers save money with their ice surface being level and not carrying as much as they might have had in the past without it, as well as saving natural resources like water by not having to put as much down.
When I was down at the S&T facility, Ryan, I think you were carrying about 1 3/4 inches of ice. So I'm happy to hear from you that you've dropped your ice surface by 1/2 inch. And a lot of people don't know this. On a single pad facility, for every 1/2 inch of ice you can decrease your pad by, saves roughly on a single pad facility in electricity costs, just electricity costs, roughly $750 a month. So you know what? If you didn't get a raise, I hope your boss is listening. Time for a raise, Ryan. Just saying. Anyways, hey folks, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Ryan, thank you for joining us. I'm not sure if you wanted to add any more, Ryan.
I just appreciate the time. There's been a lot of people in my career, over the years that have given me a lot of good information. So I'm happy to hopefully add to the dialogue and maybe help some managers and operators out there that might still be struggling to find their way in the industry. Yeah, appreciate the time. Doug, you've been great. Marty, we only had that kind of one-day interaction until now, and we're very happy with our transition. I'd say that for sure. I know when there's heated debates depending on what rink you go on to. I will say the one thing I absolutely love about Zamboni is stuff like this, the interaction, the conversations, the help if your machine, that stuff's invaluable, because losing a little bit of time in an ice rink is lots and lots of money lost, lots of opportunity lost. So Zamboni's been great with us since we got our machine, and to be honest with you, I've had to tap into that very little. The machine's been running perfectly for us for going on, we're about 2 years and about 3 months into the new machine at this point. So,
well, I have to say, added value. I think you just spoke to Ryan, and you are definitely added value to the industry. You're definitely an ambassador to the industry. We're grateful to have people like you, and there's so many out there. And those that are listening to this podcast, I have no doubt will take this in and consider looking at this option that Zamboni offers, level ice, and reap the rewards such as the S&T Bank Arena has been able to for the last 2.5 years. Well, folks, we're bringing it to an end. I want to thank Ryan Shaffer, our recreational director for the White Township and S&T Bank Arena. My co-host, Doug Peters. Thank you, Doug, again. We want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts podcast. If you have a question for one of our experts or an idea for a future episode, please email your questions or requests to info@zamboni.com. For more information or additional podcast episodes, please visit zamboni.com/podcast or search Ask the Zamboni Experts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. This is Marty Elliott wishing you an ice day.